Hi everyone. Good morning everyone. Today is 26th of May 2026 and we'll start with the analysis of today's The Hindu. I hope I'm perfectly audible and visible to you guys. Just give me a thumbs up so that we can start with today's session. Right. So let's start. Yeah, perfectly all right. So let's start with today's session. Today is 26th of May 2026 and we have a few very important news items that we'll be covering in today's analysis session. So let's start without wasting any single minute. Let's start with today's analysis. So the first news item is basically there was a petition in the Honorable Supreme Court regarding the paper leak of NEET UG entrance examination, and the Supreme Court has delivered certain sharp remarks regarding this particular paper leak, and it has also uh, sought explanation from the National Testing Agency that what is the latest development, how what different measures does the NTA has taken to implement the recommendations of K. Radhakrishnan Committee, which was constituted in 2024. So we'll cover all these things in today's analysis. So let's start. Right, NTA and NEET UG controversy. Right. So let's get a quick recap of NTA. NTA is basically National Testing, and at the end of this class, we'll be solving 10 questions related to the Office of Speaker. So that is also very important. Now, National Testing Agency is an autonomous body, and despite being the autonomous body, it failed to successfully conduct NEET UG examination multiple times, and it was registered. It was registered as a society under Indian Societies Registration Act of 1860. Now, students, the next important point related to NTA that it was established in 2017. And who's the current, Director General of NTA? Director General of NTA. So, current Director General of NTA is he's an IAS officer. He's an IAS officer, and his name is Abhishek Singh. And the most interesting part about NTA is that recently a parliamentary committee invited the officials from National Testing Agency, and these officials from National Testing Agency explained to the high powered parliamentary committee कि there was no paper leak. पेपर लीक नहीं हुआ था, सिर्फ कुछ क्वेश्चंस थे ऐसे जो सेम थे. जो पेपर लीक हुआ था और जो एक्चुअल में क्वेश्चन पूछे गए थे एनटीए में, सॉरी नीट के एग्जाम में, वो कुछ क्वेश्चन सिमिलर थे. पूरा का पूरा पेपर सेम नहीं था. सो वी कैन रीच टू अ पर्टिकुलर कंक्लूजन कि देयर वाज नो पेपर लीक. Now, when we talk about controversy related to NEET UG entrance examination, this is not new. This is not new. The last controversy happened in 2024. Right. So, पहले आप ये फैक्ट लिख लीजिए, then we'll move to the next point. Right, then we'll move to the next point. So when controversy took place in 2024 regarding NEET UG 24, and after that the Supreme Court of India was very much active, and it asked the National Testing Agency to to have certain reforms. And the main point is that post this 2024 controversy, a high level a high level committee was constituted under the chairmanship of former ISRO head K. Radha Krishnan. Now, students, this committee was constituted in the month of June 2024 and it submitted its report in December 2024. So almost 18 months हो चुके हैं since this committee has submitted its report. And the next important thing that we have to understand that the recommendations or the suggestions given by K. Radhakrishnan committee, these suggestions are yet to be enforced or these suggestions are yet to be enforced or implemented, right? Now, in the recent development, the Supreme Court of India has demanded an affidavit. और ये affidavit किस context में demand किया? Has demanded an affidavit and this affidavit is demanded in very specific context, that what measures NTA has taken to implement the recommendations of K. Radhakrishnan committee. Now this is very interesting because National Testing Agency is yet to implement the recommendations of the K. Radhakrishnan committee, and now the court has demanded an explanation that what is the current status regarding the enforcement of the recommendations given by the K. Radhakrishnan committee. Now the Supreme Court has given 3 days time to National Testing Agency and has asked this, has asked NTA that they have to file a reply within, they have to file an affidavit within 3 days. And K. Radhakrishnan committee suggested some wonderful recommendations, and basically these structural reforms could have changed the entire fate of National Testing Agency. And if these recommendations would have been implemented, then we could have avoided, or the recent mishap which happened could have been easily avoided. So that's why you constitute the committee ना, कि over the period of time जो changes हो रहे हैं, उन changes को कोई भी particular organization कितना effectively adapt कर सकती है, right? So you need recommendations, and the recommendations of K. Radhakrishnan committee is that person is the former chairperson of Indian Space Research Organization, right? It's a very talented person, right? But the recommendations are still in some cold bag and these are yet to be implemented. But now I guess the Supreme Court of India will ensure the entire thing will not repeat itself, and it will grill National Testing Agency a lot, and the grilling should be done in the due course. उसमें कोई दिक्कत वाली बात नहीं. So this entire news item is related to this particular thing only, and here you can see the reference of NEET 2024 is also given, right? Then it has also asked about the recommendations of K. Radhakrishnan committee, and at the end of the day, students, we have to understand that NTA was constituted to conduct computer-based test. NTA was primarily constituted to conduct computer-based test, but NEET is a pen paper-based examination, so it falls beyond the competency of National Testing Agency, and that's why a lot of reforms are needed in National Testing Agency. And this order was basically, this entire hearing was conducted by a division bench of the Honorable Supreme Court of India, and sharp remarks तो हुए ही हैं, but अभी देखते हैं कि आगे क्या development होता है. Now moving on to the next important point. So on the next page number, on next page, we'll cover in detail on page number 5 about the history of the Padma Awards in India and who are the winners of Padma Awards this time. Basically, we'll discuss about the winners of Padma Vibhushan Award, total winners, in which year the awards were instituted. We'll discuss all those things on page number 5. Now, moving on to the next important point. So, this is also this is something very important, where the union government has asked the Gymkhana Club, Delhi Gymkhana Club, that they have to vacate the premise, the entire place by June 5. और ये जो Gymkhana Club है, it is spread across 27.3 acres, और ये इनको बहुत ही nominal rate पर, इनको जो nominal rent पे इनको दिया गया था Gymkhana Club को. Now this, the union government has asked कि we need this particular land parcel because there are a lot of developmental projects which require a lot of land, and also, you know, this particular place is closer to the prime minister's residence. So from the security perspective, this particular place should go to the यूनियन गवर्नमेंट. सो अभी दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट में एक petition फाइल किया दिल्ली जिमखाना क्लब ने अगेंस्ट द ऑर्डर ऑफ द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट विच इज डिमांडिंग टू वेकेट द प्लेस बाय June 5th 2026. Right, now moving on to the next point, there is nothing else which is important. Now this is something which is very important, the issue of Aravali Hills. Right, now this is something which is of utmost importance, and this entire conundrum started in the month of November 2025. Now students, we have to understand that in November 2025 and December 2025, two separate orders were passed by the Supreme Court of India regarding the definition of Aravali range. Right, now Aravali range, geographically it's very important, and it is the oldest mountain range in India. So let's talk about the issue related to Aravali range. So students, in the month of November 2025, the Honorable Supreme Court of India passed the first order, and it set a definition of Aravali Hills. बेसिकली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने यह बताया कि कौन कौन से ऐसे लैंड फॉर्मेशन होंगे विच विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ अरावली हिल्स. राइट, सो द सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड एनी लैंड फॉर्मेशन which is above the height of 100 meters would be considered as part of Aravali range. Now students, after this particular order was passed by the Supreme Court of India, there was a pan-India protest, because once this particular order was passed, 90% range was excluded from the current Aravali Hills, and it was open to mining. Now this particular order was passed by Chief Justice of India B.R. Gawai. Then after the retirement of B.R. Gawai, the next Chief Justice of India assumed the office, Justice Suryakant, and after looking at the pan-India protest regarding the Aravali Hills, Mr. Suryakant passed a fresh order in December 2025. Now the order which was passed in the month of December 2025 was quite a futuristic order. And why futuristic order? Because it stayed the order passed by Justice B.R. Gawai, which defined Aravali Hills as a land formation of 100 meters or above. मतलब जो भी लैंड फॉर्मेशन 100 मीटर्स के ऊपर के होते, सिर्फ उन्हीं को अरावली हिल्स का पार्ट कंसीडर किया जाता है. जो उससे कम के लैंड फॉर्मेशन होते, उन्हें अरावली हिल्स का पार्ट कंसीडर नहीं किया जाता. एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर डिसीजन, जो 90% लैंड फॉर्मेशन जो अभी अरावली रेंज का पार्ट था, दैट वुड सब्जेक्ट टू अ लॉट ऑफ माइनिंग. Right. So because of this particular issue, people started protesting, and in December 2025, the Honorable Supreme Court of India reversed its earlier order passed in the month of November 2025. Now, moving on to the next important development. Now, there are certain facts related to Aravali range which are also important. We'll discuss those facts as well. The first fact is, it is oldest mountain range in India. It is approximately 2 billion years old. Right. So this is a very important part of our history, Aravali Hills, because it is the oldest land formation in India, approximately 2 billion years old. 200 crore साल पुराना है ये. Right, that's why the historical importance is great, and also the geographical location of Aravali Hills, Aravali range, make it more relevant. Now, the next important point related to Aravali Hills is that it spreads across 4 states, and these 4 states are Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Gujarat. Now, students, this question might be relevant for your examination, that the maximum part of Aravali Hills, maximum part of Aravali Hills or Aravali range falls in or is in Rajasthan. Right, this is one important aspect or important information which you should remember. They might ask this particular question in the examination as well, that Aravali Hills is spread across 4 states, and out of the given 4 options, in which state the maximum portion of Aravali range falls, then your answer would be Rajasthan. Now, the next important point related to Aravali range is, which is the highest peak of Aravali Hills? Highest peak. So इस पूरे रेंज की जो सबसे ऊंची पीक है उसका नाम क्या है? Guru Shikhar Peak, and Guru Shikhar Peak is on Mount Abu. Guru Shikhar Peak on Mount Abu, and it is basically 1,722 meters high. Height of the highest peak of Aravali range is 1,722 meters, and it is Guru Shikhar Peak on the Mount Abu range. This is the next piece of information which you should remember. Now, moving on to the next important point, related to this particular order, this particular topic. So this is a fact sheet of Aravali Hills, but again, in November 2025, we know what was the order passed by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. So the order was that any land formation which is above the height of 100 meter would be considered as a part of Aravali Hills, and land formation below the height of 100 meter would not be considered as a part of Aravali Hills. And after protest, the Supreme Court of India reversed its earlier order. Now, what happened next? What was the next important development? So the next important development was, basically, अगर आप लिखना चाहें, screenshot लेना चाहें, you can do the same. Then we can move to the next point. Right. Moving on to the next point. So in December 2025, The Supreme Court of India. Now, this order was very important. So, the Supreme Court of India asked Union government to constitute an expert committee for redefining Aravali Hills. Right. So basically, in December 2025, the Supreme Court of India acknowledged the folly in the earlier order, and it asked the union government that they have to constitute an expert committee, and this expert committee will, recommend the new definition of the Aravali Hills, right? So these are the points related to the entire issue of Aravali Hills, which might be relevant for your examination. So let's come back to our topic again. So a bench headed by Chief Justice Justice Suryakant was responding to submissions by Additional Solicitor General Aishwarya Bhati that the Central Empowered Committee and the amicus curiae senior advocate K. Parmeshwaram had given common names to be included in the expert panel. And this expert panel, this expert panel would decide or would redefine अरावली हिल्स, राइट? सो दैट्स इट, दिस इज दैट्स इट। इससे ज़्यादा भी आपको और कुछ एग्जामिनेशन के परस्पेक्टिव से इस टॉपिक में पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं। इफ यू हैव एनी पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम दिस टॉपिक, यू मे आस्क योर क्वेश्चन, अदरवाइज विल मूव टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक। If you have any question whatsoever from this particular topic, you may ask your question, otherwise we'll move to the next topic. Any question from this particular topic? Anyone? Now we have something about uniform civil code as well, which is important for our examination. So we'll discuss a bit about uniform civil code as well before moving to. Okay, fine. So before moving to. Now, these are the two news items which we have to cover. So let's focus on the first article. And I've already told you that this will happen. And for the fourth time in 10 days, within 10 days, the government has increased the fuel prices by 2.7 to 2.8 rupees per liter across all the states and union territories. राइट, सो जब से गवर्नमेंट ने ये प्राइस बढ़ाने शुरू किए पिछले 10 दिनों में 7.5 रुपीस तक महंगा हो चुका है पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री. So this was bound to happen because now we can actually feel the impact of West Asian conflict on Indian economy, and this was supposed to this will basically, this step is taken to minimize the losses suffered by the petroleum companies. And after all these price hikes, the petroleum companies are still saying that they have to face a loss of 600 crore rupees per day because of the rise in the prices of the crude oil, right? And at the same time, yesterday another important thing took place, and basically the United States of America has waived has lifted द वेवर ऑन द सैंक्शंस ऑफ द रशियन क्रूड ऑयल. जो रशियन क्रूड ऑयल खरीदने पर जो सैंक्शंस लगाए थे यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका ने, उन सैंक्शंस को वेव कर दिया था फॉर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. बट अगेन द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका हैज डिसाइडेड दैट इट विल एंड द वेवर विच वाज अर्लियर इम्पोज, राइट? सो इवेंचुअली अभी और क्रूड ऑयल के प्राइसेस बढ़ सकते हैं, अभी और इंडिया में पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स के जो प्राइसेस हैं वो और बढ़ सकते हैं. जो मेरा गेस है, इट वुड इंक्रीज फॉर लाइक अनदर 2.5 और 3 रुपीज. 10 से 11 रुपए टोटल हाइक होना था, 7.5 रुपए ऑलरेडी हो चुका है, 3 से 3.5 रुपए और हाइक होगा. और उसके बाद फॉर अ ब्रीफ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम देयर विल बी अ pause, right? So that's how you give these small shocks to the people of this country. छोटे छोटे शॉक ऐसे देते रहिए so that people will absorb it nicely. Now Assam UCC bill tabled seeks ban on polygamy. So we know this after Uttarakhand and Gujarat, Assam became the third state in our country to present or to table a uniform civil code bill on the floor of the house. And after Himanta Biswa Sarma took oath as the chief minister of Assam for the second straight term, this was his one of the main agendas. And before elections, he was quite sure that once we are elected to the power, we will bring uniform civil code, and we will uh, ban polygamy, right? So let's talk about uniform civil code as well, various aspects related to uniform civil code for your examination. Uniform civil code. So students, uniform civil code has been uh, given under article 44 of the Indian constitution, and article 44 is basically part 4. And what is part 4? Part 4 talks about directive principles of state policy, which means that, and this is popularly known as DPSP. Now the next point that you should remember about directive principles of state policy, that these principles are non justiciable. Justifiable. Now there is a basic difference between part 4 and part 3. And what is part 3? Part 3 talks about fundamental rights, and fundamental rights are justifiable in nature. Now what is the difference between justifiable principles and non-justifiable principles, students? So the primary difference between the justifiable principles and non-justifiable principles is that justifiable principles are enforceable against against the state, and for the violation of these principles or for the violation of these fundamental rights, a person can directly approach the constitutional courts, or constitutional courts maybe, to the Supreme Court and to the High Court. सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आप अंडर आर्टिकल 32 और हाई कोर्ट में अंडर आर्टिकल 226 for the violation of fundamental rights. But students, always remember this fact that for the violation of fundamental rights you can directly approach to the Supreme Court, but for the violation of DPSP you cannot approach to the court, because these are the directives, which means these are non-justifiable. I mean, if state government has to be utmost cautious while making any new policy, they should ensure कि जो भी डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसीज हैं उनका जो जिस्ट है वो उन सारी पॉलिसी मेकिंग में साफ साफ दिखे. बट अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ऐसा नहीं भी करती है तो आप कोर्ट नहीं जा सकते हैं. बिकॉज लेट्स टेक वन एग्जाम्पल. Under the directive principles of state policy, it is recommended to have ban on अल्कोहल. अल्कोहल पे बैन होना चाहिए. बट इंडिया में सिर्फ दो ही स्टेट्स ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने क्या कर रखा है, अल्कोहल पे बैन लगा रखा है, गुजरात एंड बिहार. तो ये चीज स्टेट इसीलिए तो कर पा रहे हैं ना, बिकॉज दिस इज ऑप्शनल इन नेचर. So that's why it is optional in nature. That's why every state in India does not have uniform civil code. Assam recently became the third state to table uniform civil code bill on the floor of the house. Now moving on to the next point, student, moving on to the next point. Now what do we understand by this term uniform civil code, or what is there in article 44 of the Indian constitution? So if you look at article 44, you will not find out the definition of the term uniform civil code, but it says every state in India shall endeavor to have A uniform civil code. That's it. This is the only statement given in Article 44 that every state in India shall endeavor, shall try to have a uniform civil code. Now, what is the exact definition of this term uniform civil code? I'll wait for a minute. You can write down all these points. Then we can move to the next information. You can jot down all this information, and if you have any particular question from this particular topic, you may ask your questions as well. Any question from this topic? Okay, fine. Now moving on to the next part, moving on to the next aspect. And in various Supreme Court judgments, the Supreme Court of India has said that it is the high time when we should have a uniform civil code. Right. Now moving on to the definition of this phrase. What is uniform civil code? Now students, to understand the definition of these three words, uniform civil code, we have to adopt a very pragmatic approach. So uniform means common or similar. Civil means something related to very personal thing or related to one's own personal being, right? Civilian का मतलब क्या होता है? Normal लोग. And code means law. So uniform civil code means common personal law. It means irrespective of the religious identity, irrespective of the religious identity, every religion have to follow a common personal law. It doesn't matter whether you are Hindu or a Muslim or a Sikh or a Christian, you have to follow a common personal law. Now, what are the different constitutes or the different elements of the personal laws? क्या क्या चीजें होती हैं? So elements like marriage, divorce, succession, adoption, and inheritance. Right, students? These are the various elements of personal laws. अब ये जो भी personal laws होंगे, these personal law would be sir, polygamy means marrying more than one time. No, polygamy means having more than one wife, right? Monogamy is one marriage, polygamy is multiple marriages. Right, so that is the difference between monogamy and polygamy. So under Hindu law, only monogamy is allowed, but under Muslim law, polygamy is allowed. So that's why uniform civil code will prohibit polygamy. Though your religion says that you can have 4 marriages, you are allowed to have 4 marriages, but again, once uniform civil code is implemented, person cannot have 4 marriages, right? So this is the definition of uniform civil code, that laws related to marriage, divorce, succession, adoption, inheritance will be common laws, will have similar laws across the religions. It doesn't matter what is your religious identity, it does not matter, you will have to follow the similar laws. Right, now moving on to the next important aspect of uniform civil code, which you should remember, I guess it is very important to remember all these things. Now, and basically these are 2 slides, and if you look at these 2 slides, you will understand each and everything related to uniform civil code. Now students, moving on to the next point related to uniform civil code. So whenever we talk about uniform civil code, UCC, Uniform Civil Code. Always remember this, post independence. Uttarakhand was the first state to adopt Uniform Civil Code, and overall, Goa is the first state to have Uniform Civil Code. As a Goa was included in the Indian territory in, I guess, in 1961, then subsequently in March 1962, a resolution was passed regarding the adoption of Portuguese Civil Code. So Goa is the, and what is the name of that statute which Goa has? What is the name of that statute जो गोवा में है अभी implemented है anyone? What is the name of that statute which Goa has? So the name of the statute is the Portuguese Civil Code. The Portuguese Civil Code 1867. So Portuguese Civil Code 1867 is basically kind of uniform civil code, and after Uttarakhand, Gujarat was the second state to adopt uniform civil code, and now the third state is Assam. Assam has introduced the bill in the state legislative assembly, and they have the sufficient number. So but it violates fundamental right. Which fundamental right? Article 25, freedom of religion. But at the same time, it also violates Article 14, which talks about the right to equality. That no one, the state shall not discriminate on the basis of race, religion, caste, sex, or place of birth. Right. So the status of, to improve the status of women, uniform civil code is needed a lot. And that's why, because see, everybody, even if a person practices Hindu religion or Muslim religion or Christianity or any religion whatsoever, there should be some kind of equality across the religion, right? So across the practices which are being followed under the personal laws, right? I mean, it is allowed to have 4 marriages, but again, look at the status of women, like inheritance के rights नहीं है, succession के rights नहीं है, right? तो ये सारी चीज़ों को इंश्योर करना, बाकी सारे fundamental rights को भी इंश्योर करना, तो is the responsibility of the state. And state is not prohibiting you from practicing or professing your religion. State is basically targeting those practices which are discriminatory and biased in nature, right? If you're कुछ नहीं मतलब religious practice, if there is a religious practice which is discriminatory in nature, then that religious practice must be changed, because we are living in a society which has a very primary document which is known as Constitution of India, and Constitution of India is the supreme document. It is the grand norm, right? Every particular law is flowing from the Constitution of India. Analysis से हो जाएगा, but if your reading speed is slow, then you should go for the reading of the newspaper, right? It will eventually increase your speed, and CLAT is a passage based examination. You have to read approximately 24 passages within a span of 120 minutes. So your reading speed has to be very, exceptional speed, right? Then only you can cover 120 questions in 120 minutes, which has 24 passages, right? Now moving on to the next aspect of uniform civil code. So these are the 3 slides. You can revisit all these 3 slides, and in multiple court judgments, the Honorable Supreme Court of India has said that there is a high time, there is a need to have a uniform civil code as soon as possible. So basically Assam will become 3rd state to have a uniform civil code, and Chhattisgarh has already constituted a committee under the chairmanship of Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai to draft the uniform civil code, right? So this is all about uniform civil code, students. Now we'll move to the next point. Now, India-US ties, Iran crisis in focus as Quad foreign ministers meet today. So we have discussed about Quad like 2-3 times. One last brief of Quad जो मैं आपको दे दे रहा हूँ. ठीक है, इसके बाद आई गेस हमें क्वाड पे वापस से डिस्कशन करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. सो क्वाड इज बेसिकली quadrilateral security dialogue. The idea of quad was conceived in 2004 post tsunami in Indian Ocean, and it was formalized in 2007. Since 2017, no major development took place. Till 2017, no major development took place, and since 2017, एनुअल मीटिंग इनका होता है. रिसेंटली क्वाड की फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स मीटिंग जो है उसे इंडिया होस्ट करने वाला है. फॉरेन आज है फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स मीटिंग वुड बी चेयर्ड बाय इंडिया. और कौन चेयर करेगा इस मीटिंग को? आर एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स मिनिस्टर मिस्टर एस जयशंकर विल चेयर द मीटिंग ऑफ Quad foreign ministers, right? Quad is a group of 4 countries: Japan, India, Australia, and United States of America. Then the last point related to Quad is who is known as founding father of Quad. The former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Shinzo Abe, is known as the founding father of Quad. Right. So these are the points related to Quad which are of extreme importance. You may write down these points. Then we can move to the next topic. Right. So we can move to the next topic. We can move to the next topic. And the Prime Minister of our country is invited to participate in the uh, 250th anniversary celebration of US Independence Day. And eventually the Prime Minister will travel to United States of America later this year. In December, he will travel to United States of America to participate in the G20 summit. Right. Now moving on, and Mr. Marco Rubio will participate in the Quad Foreign Ministers meet. Now President confers Padma Awards. Now let's talk about Padma Awards. Now there are few points related to Padma Awards which are very important for us. So let's talk about Padma Awards. So, yesterday, the Honorable President of India, Draupadi Murmu ji, presented Padma Awards to the 66 eminent personalities, and total winners were 131, but it was the first ceremony, an investiture ceremony. It was held at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and so 66 awardees were, or 66 people were conferred with the Padma Awards. Right. So let's talk about the Padma Awards as well. So students, the first thing first, these awards were instituted in 1954, and there is a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy which is very important. And what is the hierarchy of the Padma Awards? And these awards are known as civilian honors. Right. And the hierarchy is at number 4. At number 4 we have Padma Shri. At number 3 we have Padma Bhushan. At number 2 we have Padma Vibhushan. And at number 1 we have Bharat Ratna. Bharat Ratna is India's highest civilian honor, right? And then we have this particular hierarchy which is to be followed. Now, the next important point related to the Padma Awards is that these awards are announced. These awards are announced on the eve of the Republic Day. On the eve of Republic Day, right? Now, अब टोटल कितने लोगों को मिला 2026 में, कितने विनर्स थे? तो पद्म विभूषण वाज प्रेजेंटेड टू 5 इंडिविजुअल्स, देन पद्म भूषण सेकंड थर्ड और 13 और 113. सो टोटल विनर्स कितने थे? 131. Padma Bhushan was presented to 5 individuals. It is India's second highest civilian honor. Then Padma Bhushan was presented to 13 individuals. It is India's third highest civilian honor. And Padma Shri is at number 4, and it was presented to 113 different individuals, right? And during this particular ceremony, which took place on 25th of May 2026, investiture ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan, awards were presented to. This was the first ceremony. Awards are presented to 66 विनर्स. अब अगर हम पद्म भूषण की बात करें और पद्मश्री की बात करें, तो पद्म भूषण और पद्मश्री तो हमारे लिए इतना ज़्यादा डिस्कस करना रिलेवेंट नहीं है, पद्म भूषण एंड पद्मश्री, क्योंकि इसमें आप कितने लोग विनर्स के नाम याद रखेंगे. बट पद्म विभूषण इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? बिकॉज देर आर 5 विनर्स एंड दे माइट आस्क, एंड इट इज ऑल्सो इंडिया सेकंड हाईएस्ट सिविलियन ऑनर. भारत रत्न 2026 में किसी को मिला नहीं है, तो पद्म विभूषण हमारे लिए ऑटोमेटिकली इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है. सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द विनर्स ऑफ पद्म भूषण अवार्ड्स. सॉरी, पद्म विभूषण. Padma Vibhushan, right? So winners of Padma Vibhushan. So the first one is Shri Dharmendra Singh. श्री धर्मेंद्र सिंह देओल. कौन सी फील्ड में मिला है? आर्ट में मिला है और पोस्थमसली मिला है. पोस्थमसली को क्या बोलते हैं? मरणोपरांत, मरने के बाद जब विनर को अनाउंस करते हैं ना, पोस्थमस. देन वी हैव द सेकंड विनर. दिस इज द then who is the second winner of Padma Vibhushan? Shri K.T. Thomas. Shri K.T. Thomas. इनको किस फील्ड में मिला है? इनको मिला है पब्लिक अफेयर्स में. Public affairs में. Then we have the third winner. And who is the third winner? Third winner is N. Rajam. N. Rajam. इन्हें भी आर्ट में मिला है. Then the fourth winner is, now fourth winner is also very important. He is Shri P. Narayanan. Shri P. Narayanan. श्री पी नारायणन, राइट? और इनको किस फील्ड में मिला है? लिटरेचर एंड एजुकेशन. लिटरेचर एंड एजुकेशन. एंड एट नंबर 5 वी हैव, at number 5 we have V.S. Achyutanandan. V.S. Achyutanandan. इनको, इनकी फील्ड क्या है? पब्लिक अफेयर्स. और इन्हें भी पोस्थमसली मिला है. Right, so these are the 5 winners of Padma Vibhushan, which is India's second highest civilian honor. You have to remember the name of all these 5 individuals because this might be relevant for your examination, right? So एक बार इसको लिख लेंगे, then we'll move to the next topic. Where is exercise reference of Malabar exercise given? किस पेज नंबर पर मालाबार रेफरेंस एक्सरसाइज का रेफरेंस है? बेसिकली मालाबार एक्सरसाइज इज अ नेवल एक्सरसाइज. एनुअल एक्सरसाइज इज अ मल्टीनेशनल एक्सरसाइज जिसमें अलग अलग कंट्रीज की नेवीज पार्टिसिपेट करती हैं टू इंक्रीज द म्यूचुअल कोऑपरेशन, राइट. देन वी हैव फाइनेंस कमीशन ट्रांसफर्स and equity issues, right? So let's talk about finance commission of India, or the report of the, so we know this, the recommendations of the th finance commission has been implemented, and these recommendations were effectively implemented from 1st of April 2026, and these recommendations will run up to 26 to 27, 27 to 28, 28 to 29, 29 to 30, 30 to 31, from 1st April 2026 to 31st of March 2031. Now students, the finance commission of India is a constitutional body, established under Article 280 of the Indian Constitution. Article 280 of the Indian Constitution. And who was the chairperson of the 16th Finance Commission? The chairperson of 16th Finance Commission was Dr. Arvind Panagaria. 15th Finance Commission, Dr. N.K. Singh. And first Finance Commission, K.C. Nyogi. Now students, always remember this. This information is also relevant with reference to Finance Commission, that a Finance Commission is constituted after every 5. It is constituted after every 5 years, right? So these are the points related to the Finance Commission which might be of some relevance to you, which might be important for your examination. Now let's talk about the other points as well. Right. So basically अब ये आर्टिकल में बेसिकली आपको ये याद रखना है दैट द 16th, and welcome back to, and what do we understand by the term devolution of taxes? Devolution of taxes. तो devolution of taxes का मतलब होता है division of or distribution of tax between सेंटर एंड स्टेट. इसको हम बोलते हैं डेवोल्यूशन. और कितना परसेंट डेवोल्यूशन सजेस्ट किया है 16 फाइनेंस कमीशन ने? 41% डेवोल्यूशन शेयर किया. सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच में जो टैक्स का शेयरिंग होगा दैट वुड बी 41%. Now students, moving on to the next important aspect of this particular article. Now moving on to the next important article. So basically now the government of, or the 16th Finance Commission has recommended the financial devolution at the rate of 41%. Vertical devolution has been kept at 41%. अब इसमें दिक्कत की बात क्या है? दिक्कत की बात यह है स्टूडेंट्स कि जो 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन था उसने भी फाइनेंशियल डेवोल्यूशन कितना शेयर सजेस्ट किया था? 41%. But a lot of things have changed, like there is a reference given. Now we know कि VBG Ramji has replaced Manrega 2005. Now what is the actual change under VBG Ramji? VBG Ramji में जो सबसे important change हुआ है वो ये हुआ है कि सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच में जो डेवोल्यूशन है वो सजेस्ट हो गया. सॉरी 60:40 का, मतलब वीबीजी रामजी में जो फंड्स कंट्रीब्यूट करेंगे 60% कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी यूनियन गवर्नमेंट और 40% कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट। बट जबकि ये पहले मनरेगा में कितना था, 90:10, 90% by the union government and 10% by the state government. So all these developments have taken place, yet the finance commission have kept the devolution of taxes at the rate of 41%. Now moving on to the next important aspect of this particular article. So a lot of terms have been discussed कि population के हिसाब से क्या मतलब contribution होना चाहिए, फिर population के अलावा स्टेट का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है जीडीपी में, टोटल जीडीपी है जो उसमें जो ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट जो हमारे पूरे नेशन का है, उसमें कौन सा स्टेट कितना कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, 42%, इट्स 41%, it is given na 41%. The vertical devolution has been kept at 41% for the states and continue to emphasize equity as the guiding principle in determining horizontal transfers, right? So now the next important article is related to the bilateral relations between India and Australia, because the foreign minister of Australia will be visiting India, to participate in the Quad summit, Quad foreign ministers meet. So in 2022 we signed a very important agreement with Australia, which was known as Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. India is yet to finalize a free trade agreement with Australia. We have only signed a ECTA, Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, and after the signing of Economic Cooperation Trade Agreement, the trade between these two countries have already, it was 41% only. It was 40, it is given that it has been kept same for both. I mean, it is 41% only. It is clearly written here in the article. Following earlier commissions, the 16th Finance Commission has retained the vertical devolution share of 41% for the states and continued to emphasize equity as the guiding principle in determining horizontal transfer. So vertical devolution hota और horizontal devolution hota, these are two different things, right? So India might basically 2022 में जब से हमने कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट साइन किया था ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ में, तब से हमारा जो ट्रेड है वो काफ़ी बढ़ चुका है, राइट? ऑलमोस्ट 100% हुआ है, बट इसमें ऑस्ट्रेलिया को ज़्यादा बेनिफिट हुआ है, इंडिया को उतना नहीं हुआ है, बट हम शायद एक फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट साइन कर सकते हैं। इसके बाद जो पॉलिसी है एक आंध्र प्रदेश की, जहाँ पे वो थर्ड और फोर्थ चाइल्ड की बर्थ पे, थर्ड चाइल्ड की बर्थ पे 30,000 रुपीज़ के सपोर्ट और फोर्थ चाइल्ड की बर्थ पे 40,000 का वो एक फाइनेंशियल सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड करेंगे। नाउ दिस माइट इम्पैक्ट द लाइफ ऑफ वुमेन, क्योंकि जितना टाइम वो पूरे इस प्रोसेस में, मैटरनिटी प्रोसेस में पूरा इन्वॉल्व रहेंगे, उतने टाइम पर उनका बेसिकली क्या होगा, उनका करियर ग्रोथ जो होगा वो बहुत ज़्यादा कम हो जाएगा, राइट? नाउ देन वी हैव दिस आर्टिकल इज रिलेटेड टू व्हाई द प्राइजेस ऑफ इंडियन रुपीज फॉलिंग. सो वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इट बिकॉज ऑफ द current account deficit. And what is current account deficit? What is current account deficit? So the current account deficit is basically when your imports are larger than your export. So जब आपके import ज़्यादा होते हैं तो आपको क्या करना होता है, आपको ज़्यादा रुपए दे करके आपको डॉलर्स खरीदने पड़ते हैं, ज़्यादा मतलब आपको डॉलर खरीदने के लिए आपको ज़्यादा रुपए देने पड़ते हैं, राइट? और एक्सपोर्ट में बेसिकली आपके पास में डॉलर्स कम आएंगे क्योंकि आपका जो प्राइजेस है रुपी का वो क्या ऑलरेडी गिर चुका है. सो दिस इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन द करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट व्हाई द प्राइसेस ऑफ रुपीज फॉलिंग. एंड in the earlier article we also covered one thing that the various economists have recommended कि अभी कोई किसी तरीके का इस पर वो नहीं करना चाहिए, मतलब हमें इसे कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश नहीं करनी चाहिए. नाउ व्हाट डू वी अंडरस्टैंड बाय द टर्म मीमफ्लेशन? मीमफ्लेशन, व्हाट इज मेमफ्लेशन? मेमफ्लेशन, so memflation is basically sharp rise in the prices of semiconductor chips. प्लीज इसे याद रखिएगा, memflation, sharp rise in the prices of semiconductor chips is termed as memeflation. Then we have, I guess, no relevant information जो हमें अभी और आज डिस्कस करनी है apart from the definition of memeflation, sharp rise in the prices of the semiconductor chips. फिर वो ईरान का जो ईरान यूएस पीस टॉक चल रहे हैं उसमें भी कोई इंपॉर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट हुआ नहीं. स्पोर्ट्स में दिस 19-year-old car racer, Italian car racer Kimi Antonelli has won his fourth Grand Prix by winning Canadian GP. So he has won 4 Grand Prix till date. और ये चारों इनकी पहली रेस है करियर की. सो फॉर दैट स्पेसिफिक रीजन दिस इंफॉर्मेशन इज रेलेवेंट. ही इज बेसिकली द फर्स्ट प्लेयर टू win the first 4 races of his career, right? So this is all about today's analysis. Now let's start with the question answer session. So this is the first question which we have to cover, and let's start with this. Let's start with it. And it is related to the removal of Speaker of the Lok Sabha, because recently the union government, the opposition brought removal motion against the the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. So with that, in that particular context, this is relevant. So according to Article 94 Clause C of the Indian Constitution, the Lok Sabha Speaker can be removed from office by a resolution of the House. What type of majority is constitutionally required to pass this specific removal resolution? So Article 94 entirely talks about what are the different situations where the office of the speaker can be vacated. So Article 94 Clause C talks about the removal of the Lok Sabha Speaker, and you have to answer कि कौन सी majority के साथ में वो resolution pass होना चाहिए. The option 1 is a simple majority of the members present and voting, a special majority of 2/3 of the members present and voting, an absolute majority of the total structural strength of the House, and option D is an effective majority of all the then members of the House. So what is the correct option for question number 1? For question number 1, the correct option, कौन सी majority के साथ में resolution pass होना चाहिए? So basically for question number 1, the correct option is option D, an effective majority of all the then members of the House. So basically effective majority समझ लीजिए, effective majority is exactly. Then for question number, we have a next important question, question number 2. Before a formal resolution seeking the removal of the Lok Sabha Speaker can be officially moved in the House, a mandatory advance notice period must be fulfilled. What is the minimum statutory notice period? So before the resolution could be moved, you have to serve a notice to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha as well. What is the tenure of that particular notice? Option A 7 days, option B 10 days, option D C 14 days, and option D 30 days. Which is the correct option? So for question number 2, the correct option is 14 days. You need to serve a prior नोटिस ऑफ 14 डेज. तब जब तक आप 14 डेज का नोटिस सर्व नहीं करेंगे तब तक आप resolution move नहीं कर सकते हैं. Then for question number 3, to initiate the removal process, a member wishing to give a notice of a resolution against the speaker must submit it in writing. To which specific authority must this written notice be addressed? The President of India, the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, the Leader of the Opposition, or the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha? So you have to tell me. To initiate the removal process, a member wishing to give notice of a resolution against the speaker must submit it in writing. So basically जब आप removal motion initiate करने वाले होते हैं तो आपको एक notice writing में देना पड़ता है, और ये notice आप किसको serve करते हैं? This notice must be served to the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha. You will serve the notice to the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha for the removal motion. Then we have question number 4. For a motion to remove the speaker to get the leave of the House and be admitted for a detailed parliamentary discussion, a specific minimum number of members of parliament must physically rise in support when the notice is read out. What is the minimum number? Question number 4. 20 members, 34 members, 50 members, or option D 100 members? सो डिस्कशन के लिए, मोशन के डिस्कशन के लिए कितने मेंबर्स का खड़ा होना जरूरी होता है जब उस पर डिस्कशन स्टार्ट होने वाला होता है रिमूवल मोशन पे? 20 मेंबर्स, 34 मेंबर्स, 50 मेंबर्स और 100 मेंबर्स. So minimum 50 members must rise in Lok Sabha, and while the discussion is about to commence upon the parliamentary discussion about the behavior and other things about the Lok Sabha Speaker. Now, once a no confidence or removal motion against the Speaker fulfills all quorum rules and is formally admitted, it must be scheduled for discussion. Within how many days of its admission must the motion be taken up in the House? Within 3 days, within 6 weeks, within 10 days, or within 14 days? Question number 5. So it must be taken up for the discussion within 10 days as per the Lok Sabha rules. सबसे पहले आपको 50 member of parliaments का support चाहिए होता है, who must rise when a leave is present, leave of house is sought, कि अभी हम लोकसभा स्पीकर के रिमूवल पे डिस्कशन करने वाले हैं, उस चीज को फॉर्मली एडमिट करवाने के लिए 50 member of parliaments must rise, and once that particular thing has been done, now within 10 days the motion must be taken up for the discussion in the Lok Sabha. Right, now then we have question number 6. Now this is very important. Which specific rule of the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha lays down strict guidelines governing the content of the resolution, mandating that it must be specific and completely free of argument, inferences or defamatory statements? Rule 112, Rule 145(3), Rule 200A, Rule 324. Question number 6. Which specific rule of the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha lays down strict guidelines governing the content of the resolution? So for question number 6, the correct answer is option C. Rule 200A lays down the procedure regarding the content of the resolution. Now Article 96 of the Constitution modifies the administrative powers of the Speaker during the consideration of their removal. Regarding the voting rights during these specific proceedings, the Speaker, अब आपको बताना है कि जब रिमूवल मोशन की प्रोसीडिंग्स चल रही होती हैं एट दैट पर्टिकुलर टाइम अ लॉट ऑफ पावर्स ऑफ द स्पीकर ऑफ द लोकसभा आर curtailed. सो नाउ यू हैव टू टेल मी कि इसमें से कौन से राइट्स उसके पास में प्रेजेंट रहते हैं, एंड इट इज रिलेटेड टू वोटिंग राइट. कैन वोट इन द फर्स्ट इंस्टेंस बट कैन नॉट एक्सरसाइज अ कास्टिंग वोट इन द केस ऑफ अ टाई. Can vote only in the case of an equality of votes to break the tie. Is completely barred from voting or participating in any form. Can exercise both a first instance vote and casting vote if needed. Question number 7. So as per Article 96 of the Indian Constitution, when there is a removal motion is initiated against the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha can cast vote in the first instance, but it cannot cast vote when there is a tie. In case of a tie, Speaker of the Lok Sabha cannot cast its vote. The current Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla achieved a rare legislative milestone. Upon being re-elected to the chair for the 18th Lok Sabha, he became the first speaker in how many years to secure a consecutive re-election? Question number 8. So, in last 20 years, Mr. Om Birla became the first speaker who has been re-elected as the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. He was also the Speaker during the from the period of 2019 to 2024, and he was re-elected after the 18th Lok Sabha election. So he will serve for another 5 years. So he became the first Lok Sabha Speaker in last 20 years to be re-elected to the office of Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Under the constitutional framework of Article 94, the Speaker can choose to voluntarily step down from their office before the completion of their tenure. To whom must the Speaker address their written resignation? Now this is also important कि वो अपना resignation किसको देंगे? The President of India, the Chief Justice of India, the Prime Minister of India, or the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha. So Speaker of the Lok Sabha will tender his resignation to the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha. So for question number 9, the correct option is option D. The Lok Sabha Speaker will tender its resignation to the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And now we'll move to the last question of the day. Question number 10. No confidence motions against a sitting Lok Sabha Speaker have been moved only 3 times in India's parliamentary history. In which of the following years was a removal motion was initiated against India's first ever Speaker, G.V. Malwalankar? So basically अभी तक इंडियन हिस्ट्री में सिर्फ 4 लोगों के अगेंस्ट, 4 लोकसभा स्पीकर के अगेंस्ट रिमूवल मोशन इनिशिएट किया गया. G.V. Malwalankar, who was the speaker of the first लोक सभा, ही वाज द फर्स्ट लोक सभा स्पीकर. इनके अगेंस्ट कब इनिशिएट किया गया था? 1950, 54, 66 और 87. So the removal motion was initiated against G.V. Malwalankar in 1954, and he was the first speaker of the Lok Sabha, and he was also the first speaker against whom the removal motion was initiated. Apart from G.V. Malwalankar, against Hukum Singh, the removal motion was initiated in 1966, and against Balram Jhakar in 1987, and against Om Birla in 2026. So this is all about today's analysis session. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 7:45 in the morning. Till then, just take a good care of yourself. Keep yourself hydrated, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.